Hey everyone, Gaijin Goombah here. Um, this really doesn't have anything to do with like video gaming and whatnot. Um, but when I was a bit younger, like in my high school days and way early college days, I did play a lot of D&D, and I've been watching a lot of Countermonkey, which is like a side series that Spoony does, and I really like it. Because it really symbolizes everything that makes tabletop role playing really, really good. Like, you leave with really good stories. And I was listening to his video, Tandem's Last Ride, and he was talking about these absolutely insane character meat grinder campaigns. And he was talking about one of his brilliant moments as his Spoony Bard, Tandem. And it just made me go back and thinking about all of the D&D adventures that I had. And for all of you really like old school hardcore D&D players, I played 3rd edition predominantly. Sometimes we would splice 3.5, and I hate 4.0 for all the reasons that Spoony said. It's too streamlined. There's not a whole lot of originality to it. They take so much out, like the druid class, half the alignments, and it just doesn't feel right anymore. Um, but my DM, regardless of how streamlined 3.0 was, my DM did a really good job of letting us roleplay and even almost coming to the point of derailing everything that he had planned for like 3 sessions if we RP'd it out really well. And that's one of the stories that I wanted to tell. It's the story of Ixion, the half-celestial paladin. Yeah, I know the name's relatively unoriginal, and I know I was playing a lot of Final Fantasy X at that time, but I really liked the name. It felt celestial, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna use it. um, in accordance to D&D rules, if you're taking on special races, in this case he was a half celestial, you have to spend like 2 or 3 levels just to be it. But it came with a lot of cool stuff. Like, you had a percent roll to have feathered wings, which I made. You had the light spell at will. You just touch stuff and it starts glowing. Um, and you also get crazy, crazy bonuses to like charisma, wisdom, and I think Constitution. I'd have to go back in the old DM guide or the Monster Manual guide and figure that out. But what Ixion was, Ixion, when I play D&D, I love playing super good guys. Because one of the things that I really hate about this world is that we put so much focus, at least when it comes to adulthood, on things that are dark, things that are questionable, and you sort of take your childhood and put it in a burlap sack, beat it with rods, and then throw it off a cliff when you reach adulthood for some reason. I never wanted to do that, and I still haven't. Um, I'm almost 29 years old, but I still act like I'm 18 to 20. I don't know if that's ever going to change. But I like playing the uber good guy. Never mind the fact that I am Christian and that I do have my own beliefs and convictions. But I liked playing paladins because I played them in a very different way. Paladins, 9 times out of 10, or even more so than that, they have to be lawful good. But when I talked with my DM, and his name's John, and I'll just go with that. And John, if you're watching, I hope you appreciate this. Um, when I was rolling up this character, um, John was like, "Okay, so you're lawful good. What's your code?" And I'm like, "Hear me out. I am a complete servant of Pelor, and if you don't know who Pelor is the closest thing to like the Judeo-Christian God that you can get. And I know this sounds really hokey, and I'm not being creative at all, but he puts a humongous emphasis on light, the removal of the undead, kindness, and healing. So it was, it's the way I wish people would see God, like Christian God in that light. because that's what I personally believe that what that's all about. And I wanted to kind of use that to focus it on the character, but I'm digressing a little bit. Um, and I said, John, let me be neutral good, because that's what Pelor's alignment is. A lot of DMs will let you be the alignment of the god that you serve if you serve a god, if you are a paladin. And it lets you roll, it gives you the opportunity to role play a whole heck of a lot more than if you're a lawful good. Like, if your god was true neutral and you were a paladin, why would you be lawful good? Or if your god was chaotic good, why would you be lawful good if you were a paladin of that god? It didn't make any sense. So John let me roll with that. The other thing too is that Ixion never, never had more than just the absolute basic needs that, food and water, armor that was non-magical, by the way. But his one thing that was magical and powerful was his sword. I was talking to John. I said, John, for the entirety of this campaign, every amount of loot that Ixion picks up, it's going right to the Church of Pelor, all of it. And Ixion makes it a point to every town they go to go um, to the Church of Pelor in each town and ask for his blade to be blessed. So in a very interesting backhanded sort of way, John got to customize my weapon as I went up in levels. Or if I RP'd well, or if my donation was big enough, or whatever. It started off as like a +1, +2 good aligned sword, and by the end of it, like, it was a Holy Crusader, which is like the freaking, oh, how can I explain? It's like the Excalibur for paladins. It has all of these innate abilities. It could like shoot light rays, which would severely hurt undead. It had this ability to create 6 rounds of different storms, which I only used once because it's really dangerous to use, because you're doing it in this massive, like, 100-foot area. Um, but anyway, he liked the idea, and I was true to my word. Any amount of gold, any jewels, any magic equipment, anything like that, it was given away, because that's how I wanted to roll as a paladin. He was also all about being subjectively good, meaning that evil was subjective. Like, if there was a child stealing food from a vendor, he wouldn't necessarily go turn him in, because it's situational. Ixion was a character who believed that there really wasn't a whole lot of black and white when it came to evil. It was all about intentions. I don't know if I can't remember if that situation ever happened, but if that did, he'd probably pull the kid aside, take all but what the kid needed, and say, "Don't ever do this again, or I'm going to send you to the authorities," to give people a chance to actually change, or to do something different. Or he probably would have taken him to an orphanage. And there's another interesting story that I'll get into a little bit later. I was late to the group. Like, there was already an established campaign going on. And then there was this guy. I can't remember his name, and I probably shouldn't mention his name even if I knew him, but he was kind of he would do the stupidest things. Like, he was a thief that was chaotic good, and they just got done killing a lich. They were 3rd level and they killed a lich because 2 of the characters rolled 3 natural 20s. When you crit, confirm crit, and then crit again, you do insane amounts. You do like 6 times the amount of damage you would normally do with a weapon. And that's how they were able to kill this lich really quick. And I arrived just as this lich was dead because I was assigned to go check this place out. They destroyed the phylactery, and then, just to give you a sense of how well I mesh with the party, paladins also have the ability to detect evil at will. It's kind of like an evil sonar, sort of. So I was like, John, I detect evil. Is there anything else in this room? Because I was looking for evil artifacts to either destroy or take back to the church to have them properly taken care of. And he says, you feel something immensely evil behind the wall, and I say I punched the hell out of this wall. I had 20 strength. I didn't care. Um, of course, everyone else was like level 5, level 6, and I was level 2. But, and inside it was a black skull. And what a black skull is, it's an item where it buffs all the undead that are in the area, which would make sense. And it does all this other really, really evil stuff. Um, and it's not something that belongs in the hands of average, everyday people. And this guy, this rogue was like, I want to take that and sell it on the black market. And I'm like, no! No, you will not! Because the only people that are going to buy this are going to be people just like this lich that you killed. And if you have any amount of decency in your character, you wouldn't sell this on a black market. And even John was agreeing with me. He's like, he was like, if you do this, if you take this skull and sell it on the black market, for a chaotic good, even if you are chaotic good, to sell it to more evil people, which is inevitably what would happen, is not a good thing.
So I said, you know what, John? Screw it. I destroyed the skull. Because I could. And I was the one who found it. I was the one whose hand was on it. And then this guy got so pissed off, to the point where he actually left the group because he apparently was getting tired of being told what to do, and that's for another story. And I got lots of those. Um, so anyway, oh, where was I? So when that was wrapped up, we were supposed to go investigate this town that was incredibly oppressed. There was an evil triad, or like this evil council of three, they were just dominating this town. Um, there was constant martial law. There was just this huge. It makes sense, you know. I'm having a hard time with words, but it was just an incredibly oppressed town, and we were sent in to try to liberate it. I'm like, okay, I can dig this. So at the time, it was me who was a paladin, a swashbuckler, which is pretty close to a pirate without being a pirate, and then a bard. So you could only imagine how well you would expect us to get along, me being as the goody-goody paladin, but we got along really well. Because just because you're a paladin doesn't mean you have to be a dick. If you're a good person, and if you believe in humanity and trying to get along and make peace with everyone, it's amazing who you can get along with, even as a paladin. So we were actually pretty good chums by the time we got to this town. And so the bard was going around talking to people saying, okay, so what's going on? And they were like, well, there's this half-orc who's trying to get this resistance together. And he was like, okay, okay. And so he got the information. He did what good bards do. Got the information, brought it back to us, and he's like, okay, we need to go to this guy right here. And I'm like, okay. So we went. There's 3 of us, by the way, which is pretty small for a D&D group. So anyway, we meet this half-orc, and this half-orc is apparently like, if Johnny Depp was a half-orc, that's what this half-orc was. And traditionally half-orcs are really, really ugly because they're half-human, half-orc. And you can only imagine how that comes about. But this dude was really good looking. Like, he had a swashbuckler hat, with a big old feather and all this other stuff. And he just explained the situation to us. It was like our town is oppressed. There's this evil triad, and apparently this is when we were introduced to this child. Is this little boy who carried this very, very beautiful dagger around with him everywhere he went. And it turns out that he was actually the successor to rule this particular area when this triad took over. And so we got to know the kid, and I was like, I got really into character, and I'm like, I feel for these people, and I don't know why, because this is a really stereotypical, cut and dry kind of campaign story when you really think about it. But I really got into character at this point because I had such a soft heart for this kid. And maybe it's just me trying to project myself onto this character, but whatever, so be it. If I could do these things, I totally would. And so I look at this half-orc and I said, give me a soapbox. And he said, what? I said, give me a soapbox, please. And so even the party members were like, what are you talking about? I said,
Just give me a soapbox. So John said, he gives you a soapbox. And so I take the soapbox. Um, and from there, uh, I look at the bard and I say, I need you to get me scrolls of things that would get people's attention, prestidigitation, just anything that could provide special effects. And he caught on to what I was doing, I think, and he was like, okay, because I had a charisma of like 22, 24. It was like ungodly, um, but he caught on and he's like, I know what you're doing. I'll be right back. And so he did. And then I look at the swashbuckler and I said, out of character, I was like, what does your character know about the traders and even maybe some of the pirates? And he says he actually knows some of the pirate groups really, really well. The more good-ish pirates, you could say, like, they wouldn't go after small merchant vessels. Like, if it's big and shiny, they would go after it. So I'm like, okay, I've got an idea. And he actually stopped me. He was like, okay, I know what you're doing. I'm going to go to port. I'm like, good man. He went to port to try and round up as many of the merchants and pirates that knew of this evil council, because, I mean, it's an evil council. They're going to be managing trade. They're going to be giving these guys raw deals, stuff like that. So there's already animosity with these group of sailors, swashbucklers, and pirates. So what was really cool is I really didn't even have to tell them what to. I didn't have to tell them what the plan was because they already figured it out. Because these were decent friends of mine. Like, they knew who I was. And so we got everything together when we went to the town square. And I said, and then I said, John, I'm going to rally the people. And he's like, okay. Start rolling charisma checks. And I'm like, okay, if I actually, like, impromptu speech this, will you let me get bonuses? And he said, sure. It's good role play. At least I think that's what happened. This was so long ago. 19. And I gave about 4 sentences of the speech. And I can't remember what I said word for word, but this was when I was really, really big into acting, so it was very, very flowery, very, very, like, expressive. Um, and that's when I gave the cue to the bard to set off all these effects, sound echoing spells, light spell stuff. And I tell John, through the entirement of this speech, I'm just running, like, my hands just, like, over my armor, and it's just glowing this really bright light. And he said, okay, you're getting the attention of some people. And he said, okay, roll again. 18. I give another 3 or 4 sentences of the speech. And he said, okay, you're getting a heck of a lot more people. And I say, okay, I'm going to start to ascend in the air because I had the wings I could fly. And then third, freaking, like, 22, and I gave the last one, and the bard, he was really, he timed it really well when he activated these scrolls, because he was able to amplify the voice. He was able to give me some really good backlighting and all this stuff, and really got everyone's attention. And by the end of it, he said, John just kind of looks at me and he's just smiling, and he said something like, "The entire town is out listening to you talk. They've brandished their weapons and they're just waiting for you to finish." And I give the last sentence, which is like, oh god, I can't remember what I said, but something like, "You have the power to take your destiny into your own hands. Don't be fearful. Be strong be strong in the shadow of darkness. Take back what belongs to you. Rid yourselves of this evil once and for all." And I gave this big loud hurrah, and the whole town went absolutely nuts. And John was really, really happy with what was going on. And so I said, oh, what was it? I told the townspeople to arm themselves, and they freaking did. Like, and no one was even, like, you would expect people to go looting or something for weapons and stuff, but the blacksmiths were like, take everything that we have. We're taking this crap back. We're taking our city back. And John was so impressed with that, he started making rolls. I said, John, what are you doing? And he said, I'm going to see if there are any adventurers in town. And apparently there was a 7th level berserker. And what those suckers are, they're typically half orcs, trolls, or ogres, or half ogres. And I think he said it was either a half orc or a half ogre, and they're mean. When they berserk, they can go in what's called a frenzy, where they get twice as many stat bonuses, and they don't die when they're frenzied. Like you could drop them past like -10 hit points, which is where you would die. They don't die. They keep killing until their frenzy runs out. Then they'll pass out. I don't know if they die from their wounds, but they don't quit. They also typically have the ability, if they kill something, they can take a 5-foot step and attack something else. And if they're strong, like they should be, they're one-shotting things. So they're basically just 5-foot step, 5-foot step, 5-foot step. And this was really, really awesome. Um, and so then I look over the swashbuckler and I say, tell them to be ready. And he's like, all right. So he goes, and I tell him, when you see me in the sky, and I think it was like dusk, because that was the easiest time you could see it. I said, whenever you see me rising in the sky, just like with all this light going off, that's your sign. And so it was this was so corny, but it was so epic at the same time. So I tell the people to wait just outside, like oh, it was a tribunal. That's what it was. I don't know the difference, but I say wait outside. I tell the people to wait outside the tribunal. Um, and I go inside, and there's this, like, you know that kind of naggy secretary that's like, I'm sorry, you need an appointment. I mean, they had one of those because nobody saw the tribunal. No one. And so I was there prior, asking because I wanted to talk to the tribunal first to see, what their intentions were, things like that, which is stupid, of course. But that's how I rolled. Stupid, I guess. And so she was behind the counter saying, I told you you need a reservation. I said, reserve this. And I just cracked the desk in half. And so she runs. I go in. I kick the door in. Or rather the door out. She flees like I knew that she would. Because she's whatever. And so I go outside. I get in the sky. My swashbuckler friend got all of the merchants and pirates to aim all of their cannons at the middle of the tribunal building. And this was a tall building, as you would expect it to be, so it wasn't that hard to miss. I think one or two of the residents' houses did catch cannonball fire, but no one cared at this point because they wanted their city back. And so they just bombard the crap out of this building. Like, for 6 rounds, it's just cannon fire, cannon fire, cannon fire. And the building just, like, crumbles to the ground. After that happened, like, we killed a good two-thirds of their entire force, because they had a really big army, but we brought the walls in on them. And the rest of the third just went out, and it was just massed, like this big old cluster of just people fighting. And so I look around, making sure that no one was too terribly hurt. I mean, the odds were in our favor at this point, but these are still just villagers and whatnot. And I say, John, I'm gonna find this berserker. And he said, okay, you actually do find him, but there are so many guards for him to kill. He's not attacking any of the villagers, because that's the other problem with frenzy, is that when you're frenzied, you don't know friend from foe. If it's moving, you kill it. So I'm like, okay, as long as he's got enough people around, I'm not going to worry about it. And so I'm basically directing traffic from up top, telling people where they need to go. Like if there was a group in trouble, tell them where to go. If there was another cluster I need to take out, over there. The swashbuckler character, I think he and the pirate friends got their cutlasses together and joined the fray, and all their and brought down flintlock pistols and all this stuff. I'm not sure where the bard was. I think he was up perched somewhere doing one of the inspirational songs that give you bonuses to attack and whatnot. I mean, we planned this out really well. And there was only 3 of us. So John gave me what was called a fate chip. Some DMs do this, where if you roleplay really, really well, you will get the DM will give you a fate chip. What that is that if you roll low, you can use your fate chip to re-roll. And it was a really good idea because it really encouraged role playing. And we all got one because all of us did. Like a lot of the guy, I kind of expected the guys to be irritated that I was trying to take center stage, and honestly, I guess I was. But everyone had their part to play because um, the bard had to time these castings to make the full effect. And it wasn't combat related. The swashbuckler had to make charisma rolls and convince these people this was worth doing. So it really was a joint effort. Um, where was I? But anyway, um, the entire they got massacred. Like the tribunal's forces just utterly massacred. Um, and so I said, John, where's the kid? Where's the boy? And he said, oh, by the way, yeah, that dagger that he has, by the way, is Vorpal, which means its crit chance is like twice as good and does a crap ton more damage. And he was just stabbing the tribunal in the back, these tribunal people in the back. So he got his revenge, which I was like, good, that's what it needs to be. And then when everything was done, John said, out of the rubble comes a knight clad in obsidian armor with an aura of like a black swarm, or not really a swarm, but like this kind of black mist about him. And I just jaw dropped, and then like I told the two other party members, and this was me being stupid. Don't ever do this in D&D because it will surely get you killed. But I was on such an adrenaline high from everything that was happening. I told the two guys, watch my back, but tend to the wounded. Well, I know that doesn't make any sense, but I'm like, it was my fight. Like I knew this was my fight. This was light side versus Sith. Um, Going on here. And John even told me this character was made to combat you. It is basically your evil half. And it was a Black Knight of Nerul, and Nerul is I think he's chaotic evil, either that or neutral evil, but he's the god of death. Like that's what he does. He kills. And so I'm like, John, I bum rush this guy. Like you can do this kind of rush attack where you take minuses to your armor class, which makes it easier to hit, but you get pluses to your attack. And I'm like, John, I charge this SOB as hard as I can. And he was like, okay, roll your attack. 1. I was like, oh god, I am dead. I am dead, dead, dead. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna trip over my own 2 feet, and this dude is just gonna coup de grace me in the back. And I was like, I got my fate chip. John, I'm using my fate chip right now. He's like, all right. 20, 20, 20. I kid you not. That's how it went down. 3 straight 20s. That kills anything, by the way, save for maybe a Tarask. And so it couldn't have been any better. Like this is movie stuff, and maybe that's why I liked it so much, and maybe that's why John and the party liked it so much. But he said, out from the clouds, a ray of light comes down and gleams on your sword, and your sword just has this super holy glow, and you just smite this this poor bastard in one hit. He's reduced to nothing but ash. The hand of Pelor actually opens the heavens to bless your blade to completely just obliterate this incarnation of evil. And I was like, this is the most. We were all like, this is the most epic thing ever. Um, and so that's the story of Ixie and the Tribunal. What inevitably happened though is we found, and this campaign went on for a couple months, but we eventually found this child who was like a psionic prodigy. And if you don't know what psionics are, it's basically where you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with your mind. If you're a psionic warrior, you can actually take weapons and like stick them in your hands.
Now you can't pull them back out without doing massive damage to yourself. You can like stick blades and crap all over your body, and you basically become just a walking weapon. Um, but psionics are really borderline overpowered. In fact, a lot of people would argue that they were overpowered completely. But all throughout this quest, all throughout all these different quests, like we were supposed, I can't remember what we were supposed to do with this kid, but we were protecting her from some other big wizard who wanted to harness her to take over the world, etc., etc. Um, and the party did their thing, but I was the caretaker of this kid. Again, I had a soft spot for this kind of thing, and the party was okay with it because they knew the kind of character I was trying to roll with, and so I kind of fostered this kid. Um, and the overall objective that Ixion had was to become a full celestial and join Pelor. Um, and that was good to have because it gave purpose to the character. It gave long-term purpose to the character because you never did know, or he never did know how much it took to prove himself, to become what he dreamed to be. And we eventually like the the girl really I don't know if John planned this or not, but since this girl was immensely powerful, I wondered if she was gonna go all like DBZ Gohan and like beat the crap out of people if the battle wasn't going so well. But we made a mistake at some point and the girl got kidnapped. And then we figured out where this dude's place was and we just got there as quick as we could. And the two guys, the two other party members, they were preparing for everything that was going on, and I'm like, I could, but I don't know if Ixon would be in the state of mind to do that because he loved this child, as his own. You know, this was a couple months over gameplay, um, so he just kind of charged in, just because and it was I knew he was gonna die, but I figured this is what he would do. Um, and what happened is when I got to the first encounter, John said, "You look about your body and you feel just this new power wash over you, um, like you just your muscles firm up, your wings have this sort of glow to them, and you've become a full celestial." And that was kind of my cue that this is either going to be my last stand, um, or uh, or after this is going to be the point where Ixine joins Pelor. Um, so anyway, there actually wasn't too much in this guy's place, um, but there were the room right before him where he had this kid basically put in this chamber to suck out her power were two beholders. And beholders suck a lot. If you don't know what a beholder is, beholders are basically giant floating heads with one big eye in the front, a giant toothed maw like a shark, um, and then like 8 or so tentacles coming out of its head with other eyes. Each one of the smaller eyes has a ray ability, but they're ludicrous. Like, um, one of them is like a dominate person, where you completely lose control of your character. Another one is a disintegrate ray, where if you fail a save, you die. You're gone. You're dust. Um, the large eye in the front, if it has it open, it's basically an anti-magic cone for 30 feet out, which is ridiculous. And it flies perfectly, which means it's not really hindered by anything. It just floats around, and there were 2 of them. But we were all really, really powerful at this point. We were kicking like level 12, level 13. So like I was kicking level 12, level 13. So the guys were like 16, 17, well, not 17, but like 15, 16. Um, and I blow everything. I blow all of my once per day ability, like once per day or once per week abilities, and I just smite the ever loving crap out of these 2 things. And the guys finished preparing. They were running up the stairs, to try and join me. Um, and I think at this point the party knew I was going to die. I knew I was going to die, and they got kind of upset that I went in without them. Um, but I felt it's just what my character would have done, being a little brash. We finally get to the guy, and he does this. I can't remember what the spell's called, and you D&D people are going to hate me for not remembering. But he's able to split himself into 3 different forms, only a mirror image. But this mirror image was ridiculous. It was like 3 or 5 of him, and I couldn't figure out which was which. I don't think I had any sort of ability that could. And he had this freaking ray that just level drains you. He was doing level drains, and he was doing stat drains, which I believe you can't do on full Celestials. I don't think they can die by level drain or stat drain. Uh, but this was after everything had happened, and I'm like, this was still a good way to end the character, and end the campaign, because this was the end of the campaign, so it was a good spot. But I took a good third of his health before he took me down, and he did take me down. He took me down pretty hard. Um, and so I felt like I had failed. Like, I felt like Ixion had failed in his objective, because he kind of did. Um, but he sacrificed everything in order to save this child, which would seem like a very small thing. But that's what gave him his celestial hood, and upon his death joined Pelor in his realm, which is, that's what he wanted. And he was sad that he couldn't save this girl, but when he fell, this girl that he had cared for so long hulks the crap out. She gained like gigantic size, or not gigantic, one step below that, like between gigantic and large, whatever that is. And she just breaks this guy in half. She like picks him up with her mind and just mentally breaks him in half and just throws him. And she just wigs out. And the poor party, you have a swashbuckler and a bard. And they were I can't remember if they were just trying to fight her or if they were just trying to diffuse her anger, neither of which really worked. But since she was a psionic and a really powerful one at that, she could not dimensional. She was pulling herself, the rest of the party, and in a small area of land that they were in, into other planar dimensions, like every other round, to fight. And so you're going into places like the elemental plane of fire, where if you're not prepared to go in there, you're gonna easily die, because the whole place is just it's basically what people would think of as hell, like like lava pits and fire and all this other stuff. It's not an easily survivable place to live. Uh, and I think the party died, and I think she ended up killing herself in the process because she was raging so hard. Um, and the highlight of that fight, the guys had a foldable boat, which is, you have like this little like block or something, and you can throw it and command it, and it folds out into a really big boat. They took this thing, they chucked it at her, they commanded it to become a boat again. It became a boat and like smacked her in the face. Like, it didn't do much in the way of damage, but it was really hilarious. Um, but it was a swashbuckler and a bard. You can't take on that kind of power. Even if I was there and she hulked out, I don't even think we could have taken her collectively, as overpowered as I was at the time. But that's the story of Ixion. He was my favorite character. It was the best role playing experience that I ever freaking had. And thanks to Spoony and his stories, it just kind of reminded me of all these different things. And I want to throw mine out there. And I hope he watches this, because a lot of people give him a lot of credit for just the general Spoony experiment and all of his reviews and stuff. But out of everything he does, I like Counter Monkey the best. They're good stories, and it's why I really miss tabletop gaming. I either don't have the time or I don't have the group for it. Usually it's the earlier than the latter. But I really miss 3.0, 3.5 D&D. I will not play 4.0. But So yeah, that's the story of Ixion, and I'm glad you stuck around. It's been about 40 minutes, so I might have. I've got a couple more stories, and depending on how people react to this video, I might put one or two more up. But yeah, that's the greatest D&D story that I have. So until next time, this is Gaijin Goombah signing out.